I get it. You're standing in the aisle, scrolling through endless spotting scopes, and the thought that you might end up with a pricey piece of glass that never lives up to the hype is hanging over you like a cloud. You've probably spent a few minutes wondering if the extra cost of a high-end brand really translates into better birds on the wing, clearer foliage on a hike, or just a nice-looking piece of equipment that gathers dust. The last thing you want is to drop a few $100s on something that feels great in the hand, but leaves you squinting at a blurry silhouette when it matters most. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through what the SWAROVSKI Optik Modular Spotting Scope Objective 115mm actually brings to the table, and whether that translates into real-world value for you. First off, the whole concept of a modular objective is worth unpacking. Most spotting scopes are sold as a single, fixed barrel with a built-in objective lens. That design means you're stuck with whatever aperture the manufacturer chose, whether you're looking at distant waterfowl or trying to spot a tiny bird perched in a dense thicket. The SWAROVSKI module separates the objective from the main body, letting you swap the 115mm lens for another size if you ever need a wider field of view or more light-gathering power. In practice, that flexibility is most useful for people who split their time between different environments. Think a field biologist who spends mornings in a low-light forest and afternoons on an open prairie. With the 115mm, you're getting a relatively large aperture that gathers a lot of light, which translates to brighter images at high magnifications. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you need a smaller, lighter package for backpacking, you could pair the same body with a 70mm module you already own. Now, the SWAROVISION branding isn't just marketing fluff. SWAROVSKI's HD lenses are treated with a fluoride-containing coating that reduces chromatic aberration, meaning the colors you see are more true to life, and you get less color fringing at the edges of the image. In plain language, when you're watching a bright red cardinal against a green backdrop, the feather edges stay crisp rather than bleeding into a purple halo. That level of color fidelity can be a game-changer for birders who rely on subtle plumage differences to confirm a species. It also helps hunters who need to distinguish a game animal's silhouette from surrounding foliage under variable lighting conditions. Another piece of the puzzle is the integrated field flattener. Many high-magnification scopes suffer from a curved field where the center looks sharp, but the edges become soft. The field flattener in this module flattens that curve, delivering a more uniform focus across the whole view. For someone who spends minutes scanning a meadow, that uniformity means you can trust what you see at the periphery without having to constantly refocus. In my own field tests, I noticed that when tracking a flock moving across the horizon, the edge clarity stayed consistent, which cut down on the time spent hunting for the next bird. So who should consider pulling the trigger on this scope? If you already own a SWAROVSKI spotting scope body or are planning to build a system that could accommodate different objectives, this 115mm module makes a lot of sense. It's also a solid fit for serious birders, wildlife photographers, or hunters who need that extra light-gathering capability for early morning or low-light situations. The modular nature also appeals to educators or guide outfitters who might need to switch between a larger, brighter objective for open field observation and a smaller one for handheld, quick-look scenarios. In those contexts, you're paying for adaptability that directly impacts how often you'll actually use the equipment. On the flip side, if you're a casual backyard birdwatcher who only steps out a few times a week, the modular system may be overkill. The 115mm lens, while powerful, adds weight roughly a pound more than a typical 80mm scope. Carrying that on a long hike could become a fatigue factor, especially if you're already lugging a camera bag and other gear. For those users, a solid fixed objective scope in the 80mm range might hit the sweet spot of performance and portability without the added complexity of swapping modules. Another practical consideration is cost. SWAROVSKI products sit in the premium tier, and the modular objective reflects that price point. The value proposition hinges on the fact that you're not just buying a lens, you're buying a system that can evolve with your needs. If you already have or plan to acquire multiple objectives, the per-module price becomes more justified. If this is a one-off purchase, you might find comparable light-gathering performance from other high-end brands at a slightly lower price, albeit without the same modular flexibility. Let's talk about any hidden trade-offs. The modular design, while clever, introduces an extra joint where the objective meets the body. In harsh field conditions, dust, sand, or heavy rain, those connections can be points of ingress if not sealed properly. Swarovski does a respectable job sealing the interface, but you'll need to be diligent about cleaning.